All right, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Casey Carr. I'm a theater studies and English major at Kent State.
All right, so you are not studying music right now.
I'm not. Correct.
But I would guess you have an interest in music? It's been a part of your life?
Yes, I've been in choir since I could talk, so yeah.
Why did you first take an interest in music?
Well, because my mom made me, but then after that, because no, really, when I was 5, I mean, my brother is 7 years older than me, and he always was a big music person, but he was more in band, he did instruments, and he was really good at piano, and so when I turned 5 and was old enough to take piano lessons, they signed me up, and I hated piano until I was 15. I hated it, but I did it anyway. I just hated practicing, and then eventually it grew on me, and I grew to love it. But yeah, so it was kind of forced on me. But that was just the instrumental part of it. Singing was not exactly forced. Because in 4th grade, Mom was go do this choir. And so I signed up and I did the children's choir in my community. And then next thing I know, I've done it my whole life. And it was fantastic. So yeah.
It sounds like it. Was voice then more appealing to you than instrumental music?
Yes, just because I'm not so good at instruments. My fingers don't do what I want them to do all the time. But my voice, I can manipulate that however I want. So,
yeah. And do you think your voice can do things lyrically that an instrument couldn't do?
Well, I don't know about that, because I can be extremely moved by instrumental music. But I think live instrumental music is where it's at. Because if you're listening to a recording, you can tell in a recording of a voice. You can still feel and hear some of the emotion. But in a recording of an instrument, it's a lot harder. If you're watching someone play though, you can just see the love they have for what they're doing, and it's totally different. So,
do you think what you're seeing then is just the physical exertion that they have to put into music, or do you think it's more of a self-definition that they're putting into their music? Is it more of a message, or are they just they happen to be putting a lot of physical effort into it?
No, more of a message, definitely. Because you can put a lot of physical effort into it and not be putting in love or emotion. Because that's two totally different things. You have to be able to feel the emotion inside in order to reflect that in the music and in what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You can just tell. And there are some people, I really love it when I'm watching someone perform, especially on piano or something, and they can just close their eyes and let themselves get lost in what they're doing and what their fingers are creating. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I know that. I've seen that before, and it always gets me.
Every time.
Yeah, every time. So would you say, then performer for you is more than just someone that's on stage? If you're going to call yourself a performer and embrace that noun as a part of, who you are and how you define yourself, is it more than just you have the ability to get on stage?
For me personally, absolutely. I mean, there are people who will say they're performers just because they do get on stage, but for me, if you don't put your heart in it, you don't deserve the title of a performer. Because if you don't have a love for what you're doing, and the whole point of performing, and I know this because I'm a theater person, it's what I want to do with my life, the whole point of performing is to share what you're doing with other people. Performing to me, I'm a people person, and so performing for me is a way of connecting with people and of bringing people something to their lives that they didn't have before, of making people happy. It's just another way of doing that. And so if you don't love what you're doing and you're not doing it out of a want, out of a need to share it with your audience, then no, you don't deserve to be called a performer, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that, absolutely. So, would you say that it's not just been a connecting thing for you, though? It's done something for you in your life? Being able to call yourself a performer isn't just something that, is beneficial towards your audience if you give them something that means more. But for you, being able to perform and be authentic about it has done something for you in your life?
Absolutely. It does so much for you emotionally. And just being able... Because when you connect emotionally with an audience, whether you're acting or singing or dancing, whatever you're doing, being able to have that emotional pull for it is just, it's so freeing. It's another way of expressing those pent-up emotions inside of you in a way that nothing else can. It's a way of really letting yourself go, and it's really vulnerable. Being a performer is horribly vulnerable. Because you are exposing the absolute core of yourself to other people. You are totally opening yourself up on that stage, and people can judge you and they can say whatever they want about you. But the whole point of it is you are allowing them to. You're giving that to them.
And how do you think you'd be different if you didn't have that release? Like if you didn't have that vulnerability?
I don't know if I'd be here. I don't know. Well, because I've had a lot of times in my past where I've gone through hard things and contemplated difficult decisions, and really having something like that there got me through. Because, like I said, I hate being vulnerable. It is one of the scariest things for me personally. I don't open up to people. I don't allow myself to be vulnerable usually. So, but when I get on stage, it's allowing myself to do that. It's taught me so much about myself. And even though I don't open myself up in my personal life, having that as a way to open myself up, really, I needed that. Because if I never opened myself up and let myself be vulnerable, I would have so many walls and barriers, and I would let nobody in, and I would be totally friendless and relationshipless in any aspect, in any form of the word relationship. I just would have none.
Yeah.
And having that ability to go and be free in front of total strangers it gives me that release that I can't get in my personal life.
Yeah, so it's kind of a way of like giving something to your audience without telling them anything about yourself.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. And a lot of times you do tell them everything about yourself. Well, and it depends on the actor and the way you're performing. I use a method where I use my personal life I use things that have happened to me in the past as like an example to draw up the emotion again. So for me, yes, it is very personal. I am exposing who I actually am to them. There are some people who will be able to perform and like do a song or something and put emotion into it, but it's emotion they didn't really feel. It's the emotion they want the audience to feel. They're putting that in. They're not connecting it, but I always connect it with something in my own life, and that makes it. And although the audience won't be able to tell the difference, they can look at somebody who doesn't put a personal investment in a song and look at like me who does put a personal investment and not be able to tell the difference. They can feel the same emotion from the two people. So really, and putting the personal emotion into it isn't for the audience, it's for myself.
Mm-hmm. So would you say, and this is the last question and the one that I find kind of hard to answer myself, do you think that you define your music or that you use music to define yourself?
Oh, good Lord. I don't know.
Like when you're on stage, is it more of you're putting stuff into your music to be able to say a message that way, or do you use that tool of music to kind of express things that it wouldn't otherwise say?
Well, music in and of itself, singing, there's a thing we say in the theater, especially in musicals, because it's mostly acting, and then when you break out into song, there's a common saying that the reason people sing in musicals is to express what can't be spoken. So really music it's to express what you can't say otherwise. It's so much, when you use music, it's like there's too much in it. There's too much emotion. There's too much drawing you to song. You can't just say it. There's so much inside of it that it can't be said any other way. I mean, music in and of itself is so unique. It's such a unique thing. It is absolutely essential. I'd say I do let music define me, and I do let music define me more than I define music. Because if you ask me, there is no definition for music. You have to feel it to know what it is.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely know what you mean. That's actually it, but thanks for letting me into your head for a while.
No problem.
All right.